Okay, let me tell you a story. A story how I ended up buying the cheapest 911 in the world. This 911. First, I need to give you some context. I love cars, but this is the very first car I own that's actually any interesting. My first car ever was a Citroen Berlingo that belonged to my parents, and I completely destroyed it. Honestly, it wasn't entirely my fault. This car already had over 300,000 miles on it, and it was in just 10 years of its life. It was manual though, so that's something. The next car, also manual, was my company car when I moved to Warsaw and I was working at camera rental house. Everybody was calling it a Cadillac, but it was actually a Volkswagen Caddy. There were so many stories with this car. Everybody that I was ever working with knew this car. It was famous in like film industry in Warsaw because it was a small car that was always on a big shoots and doing all of crazy stuff with me. And honestly, I was using it much more than I should. The amount of dates and different activities of a young man that I performed in this car is incredible. But yeah, that was this one. And then when I was so close to buying something that I would actually enjoy, I ended up deciding to buy a Peugeot Expert because I wanted to make some money off of projects that I'm doing and actually put my car as a camera truck. It was a white manual van. So imagine pulling up to pick up a new girl for a date in this white van. It was tricky. It always needed some explanation. As you can see, all of them I have a special place in my heart for those three cars, but they weren't really exciting, you know. There is one more car that I owned. This one is closest to being exciting for me because for me exciting isn't really about being the most fancy, the fastest or the loudest, whatever. It's just the car that has a soul. It was a $2,000 Mercedes-Benz ML320 that I bought when I first came to US. And I realized that you can't live in US without a car, especially in LA. I decided to find the cheapest car I can find on Facebook Marketplace and just buy it. This Mercedes was definitely the cheapest and definitely the coolest. It had a CarPlay inside, aftermarket obviously, and I loved this car. It was supposed to serve me only for 3 months. After that, I was planning to sell it and come back to Europe. But after 2 months, I loved LA so much that I was sure that I'm gonna come back soon. So instead of selling it, I decided to leave it with my friend. So I gave her the keys. I was like, you don't owe me anything, just take care of it. You can drive it, you can use it, whatever. And she did. The problem was I ended up not coming back to LA for 2 years because I was denied entry. And this car actually survived. These 2 years, it was serving many of my different friends and colleagues. And yeah, it became a legend as well. Just like the Cadillac in Warsaw, the Mezzi in US. Everybody loved it. It was full of problems. The power steering died, doors weren't closing, the windows weren't working, the electronic inside were all messed up because of the CarPlay. But it was driving. Like for $2,000 car that we didn't really put any money in it, 2 years, that's fair. I ended up selling it for $100 to a gentleman that took it to Mexico just because it finally broke. It wasn't starting up. At this point in my life, I had money to buy something else, so I decided to just get rid of it. I believe that it has a beautiful life in Mexico. It's like a retirement. But yeah, apart from these 4 cars that I was using for longer periods of my life, I was mainly renting. And I was renting many different cars. Some better, some worse. Some of the coolest, Dodge Challenger, I really like that one. But in rental companies, there are mainly the V6 version, so it's not that fun. Once I had RT, the V8, and it was so much better. I was renting a lot of Mustangs, convertible. I love Mustangs, but the gearbox broke on me in the middle of the desert, which wasn't fun at all. I don't remember, something else also happened once, but Mustangs were cool. I once rented a Camaro in Hawaii. Hawaii was a good part of it, but Camaro wasn't exciting for me at all. Maybe with a bigger engine, I don't know, but it wasn't nice. It was so cheap and plastic, and I don't know, I didn't like it. Yeah, I hated two cars that I was renting. Tesla Model 3, absolutely garbage. I can't recommend it. And Jeep Wrangler. Actually, I love the way that this car looks, but the driving experience in it is terrible. It's vibrating at certain speeds to the degree that it's dangerous. It's just bad. I don't know. I did so many miles in this car because I had no choice. I was on a road trip around California. I actually got stuck in the middle of Grizzly Reserve in this Jeep Wrangler. It was my fault, not the car, because I just forgot to fill it up. But yeah, it wasn't a good experience. I was driving a BMW Series 2 in Japan. Not exciting at all. I was driving, I don't even remember what, in Kenya, but driving in Kenya was fun, so the car served as well, but it wasn't any interesting. And I was driving this weird, I don't remember the name of the model, but this weird small version of Toyota RAV4 in Bali. I like this one. So you see, all of those cars were fine. I had so many adventures with them, but the cars itself weren't really any interesting. This brings us to this baby. It's a 2000 Porsche 911 Carrera convertible. It's the cheapest Porsche 911 I could find. It's a 996. I got it for 7,500 bucks. There is so many things wrong with it, but I already drove 2,500 miles in it and it works. The only thing I did was changing the engine oil and transmission fluid. That's it. But let's talk why it was so cheap. Well, shocks are leaking, squeaking, and not really working anymore. Wheels were too big. Now they're okay, but I discovered that they are too big when one of them exploded on a highway. Then I realized that they are constantly rubbing. So I bought those new wheels with new tires for 300 bucks on Facebook Marketplace. And now it's fixed. Convertible top is not working. Rear driver window doesn't really work. Those two are the cheap but pain in the ass repairs, but the second gear was popping out when I was shifting into it, and all it took me was changing the transmission fluid. That's it. Now it works perfectly. And there are many small things like that with the car. But let me tell you why this car, because there's many reasons why I chose this old 996. First of all, just look at it. It's beautiful. I remember when I was a kid, I was looking at all Porsche and I thought that they are so ugly because of the rounded headlights. As a kid, I saw cars as people. And for me, those round eyes were just hilarious. And I remember seeing this one for the first time and I was like, oh, they finally fixed the eyes. And later on, the car was actually in Cars as Sally. I fell in love with it, and when so many years later I learned that people actually believe that this car is the ugly of them all, I was shocked. I think it says a lot that whenever something's different, people think that it's worse, and this is why I love this car so much, and also why it was so much cheaper. And the other thing that I love about this particular generation is that it's so tiny. It's more modern than, let's say, 964. It's faster. but it's still tiny. The modern Porsches and modern cars in general grew so much bigger. All of the other cars that I was driving, obviously I was mostly driving vans, but also all the muscle cars and the Tesla, whatever, they are so much bigger than this little bug, this little beetle. I like to call it beetle because of the color, but also whoever knows the history of the cars, this is basically like the sportier version of a beetle. There are many more reasons, but let me tell you about them from the inside when we drive it. It's so spacious in here. This is something that actually surprised me so much about this car when I first test drove it, and it was a huge thing for me. I had a couple of very specific needs for this car because this is my daily driver and honestly my only driver. It needed to be able to carry my girlfriend's big suitcase in the back, and it does it. It needed to be a convertible because I live in California. It needed to be able to actually commute easily, so it couldn't be too stiff, and this part actually I think still can be improved. The first thing that I did, I changed the 18-inch wheels for 17-inch, and I got a much thicker tires, but still I feel like it could be better. So my plan is to actually raise the car 2 inches and give it off-road tires and do like a safari project, and I think it's gonna be the coolest thing ever. I haven't seen a safari convertible ever. And the other thing is handling. This car handles so well and it gives me so much joy every time I drive it, and I think it's super important for a person that actually likes driving and actually cares about driving. I'm spending so much time behind the wheel living here in LA. It's a big chunk of my life basically, so it had to be a car that handles well, and Challengers and Mustangs, you know, could be better honestly. What's next? Oh, I really want to be able to carry a surfboard and occasionally a roof tent because I love camping, and this car is gonna be a perfect road trip machine because I'm road tripping all the time. And that was the other thing, that I could go like more sportier, but it would actually mean that I need 2 cars. One that I would need for road tripping with luggage and with like tent and everything, and the other one to just enjoy driving. That's not what I'm looking for. I want something that I could use every day, use on a road trip, and use for a spirited canyon driving, whatever, just like enjoyment driving. And this car is all of those things at the same time, and I think it's beautiful that something like this exists. I don't yet understand people that prefer to have like 5 different cars for 5 different purposes. I'd rather have one that fills all the boxes, and I actually find so much joy in finding those gems that can work in so many different scenarios. So yeah, I'm really in love with this car. There are still so many things wrong with it, but this is also another thing that I actually need a hobby, something completely different than working with a camera, either as a cinematographer or photographer or whatever. It was always my job and my hobby, but it doesn't work like that. You always are in the same headspace. I need something completely different. So I decided to actually learn working on a car, and this is gonna be the car that I'm learning on. And as I said, there is like many things that I want to do to this car, both because I need to safely drive it, but also because I think it can get some improvements, and I really want to make it my my safari project. My dream car is a Lamborghini Sterrato. I'm not there yet to buy it, but I'm gonna be. But this is honestly the second best when I get it to like my safari version of it. So yeah, I took advantage of the previous owner that wasn't really taking care of the car. Honestly, the car wasn't in the best shape, but that's why I got it so cheaply, and as it turns out, I can also cheaply fix it. I think this is like the best of both worlds. So yeah, see you in the next one when we start working on it, and I just got home, so let me grab some dinner. See ya!